And they have won a major national award for their use of the video conferencing system Zoom, which of course has entered all of our lives during the pandemic. And they have won it for the way they have taught the students during lockdown. The Zoom in Education competition was open to primary and secondary schools across the country and is run by Limerick-based company Integrated Media Systems. Over the past few months of lockdown, IMS has been providing schools across the country with pro Zoom licences while running training webinars for school staff. The company launched the competition to celebrate how teachers nationwide have been developing and innovating their lessons for children stuck at home. 18 primary and secondary schools from across Ireland produced a 2-minute video of how their schools were using Zoom creatively. 5 schools were then shortlisted, with Clarinbridge receiving the top place in an online judging session this week. The school has now won an all-in-one Zoom room screen worth €5,000 that will enable entire classrooms to take part in future Zoom lessons for talks online. The Clarinbridge entry was created by teachers Caroline Burke, Susan Rush and Ellen Walsh, with support from Principal Sean Holian. Our reporter Daniel Considine has this evening been speaking to teacher Caroline Burke about the project and how it has helped the pupils during a tough few months.
Myself and Ellen Walsh and Susan Rush thought to ourselves, we're doing something very creative, but, luckily they agreed with us, and we decided to put together just a few clips of the different activities that we would do in Zoom.
And can you tell us what were these activities?
Well, we had a range of activities. I suppose I should start with the one that I felt was the most moving and heartwarming experience that even I feel I've ever had in my teaching career, and that was where we did a virtual Grandparents' Day, and we invited the grandchildren and their grandparents onto Zoom along with us, and the children made posters and poems for the grandparents, and they sang songs and they played music, and it was a privilege to be part of that, to see the rapport that they have with between the grandchildren and the grandparents. And some of these grandparents hadn't seen physically their grandchildren. And it was just a very, very moving experience. At this time where it's difficult, I suppose, to reach out, and then all of a sudden you have this beautiful experience during school time. It was just, I can't put into words. They didn't tell me to have my tissues ready, but you definitely needed them. And we also have done, like, second class had their communion day, and obviously they didn't have their communion day, so we had a special ceremony for them with the parish priest, Father Barry, their teachers Karen Coulahan and Trace Silver, and of course their principal Sean Holian held a special ceremony for them on that day with their parents. And we also are going to have another one for 6th class with Mr. Glavy, 6th class, and the 6th class pupils, their parents and staff for next week, but just as they're getting ready to leave the school. And I suppose we did loads of other activities like maths, games and dance and music, and we had exercise, science experiments, we did virtual tours, we did live Kahoot quizzes. Teachers downloaded the Zoom onto their phone and tablets, and they even went out to the seashore, because one of the teachers lived within 5 kilometres from the seashore, and she went to the seashore, and some went to the farm, and someone went out doing mini beast hunts in the garden. And I suppose that at this time, well-being is paramount for us, so we were trying to find ways that we could help connect with the children more, and even just turning on Zoom and seeing their lovely faces, and they're smiling and they're so happy, and I suppose that's why we really went into teaching, was to have an experience like working with children. And that's the worst part of this whole pandemic for me, for my career, is not being able to interact with the children like that, and Zoom allowed us to do that, because you could actually go into their homes and see them and chat to them, and we also did yoga through Zoom, and we did Qigong for the staff and the parents as well, because it's not just a difficult time for the children, it's a difficult time for staff as they're trying to get their head around this distant learning that just landed on our desk all of a sudden. It was like a baptism of fire, where Thursday everything was fine, and then you were like, no, you close up the school. And I suppose we didn't know how long it would last, and you didn't have all your equipment with you, and it's also just stressful for parents. And I really have to say that a huge thank you to the parents of our school, because without them none of this would have been possible.
It really seems like a case of making lemonade with the lemons given to you by the situation.
Yeah.
It seems to have drawn out the absolute best of teachers and teaching and the effect they have on children. It really does sound wonderful. Judging by your major winning in this competition, the judges thought so too. Can you tell us, how was it judged? How did the competition wind up with yourselves taking the top places?
Yeah, so there was an entry of from schools. The closing date was last week sometime, and then it was whittled down. There was 18 schools, primary and secondary, who entered the competition, and it was whittled down to the top 5. And then from there they had 2 judges, and then there was a live audience vote as well. So it was really like the Eurovision, where the first judge came on and he said, I give 10 points. Well, he didn't say 10 points. He said, third place, this is who I give it to, and explained it, and second place. And then, of course, we got top mark. We were lucky enough to get top marks from both judges. And as I said, we got 57% of the audience votes. And one of the teachers, Susan Rush, she spoke on behalf of the school, and we just talked about how Zoom has changed really our way of teaching, even breaking the barriers, from bringing grandparents in. We thought maybe, we could bring in scientists, motivational speakers, celebrities, and it really, we think, will be an essential tool for us teaching going forward.
Well done to all of them there in Clarinbridge. Now we're just getting